dark side of Saint Laurent. Today we're taking a closer look at the luxurious fashion brand that has been turning heads for decades, Saint Laurent. But as we all know, there's always a darker side to every story. From controversies surrounding the founder to allegations of cultural appropriation, the history of Saint Laurent is anything but clean cut. So buckle up and get ready to explore the shadowy side of this iconic brand. We'll be delving into some uncomfortable truths, so if you're ready to take a walk on the dark side of fashion, stick around. On December 4th, 1961, in the premises at 30 Bis Rue Spontini that had once served as Painter Ferrand's studio, the young courtier Yves Saint Laurent opened the doors of his haute couture house with the help of his life and business partner Pierre Bergé. On the same day, in a house next door, a child named Fabrice Thomas had came into the world. At that moment, no one could imagine that Paris would let them meet, and 30 years later, fate would make them lovers. In the mid-60s, a new generation of women started to feel the need to dress themselves elegantly but still in an affordable way. Following this growing desire, Yves left the strict and obsolete norms of the haute couture behind, opening in 1966 his first ready-to-wear boutique under his name. Instead of conceiving ready-to-wear as a lower-priced version of haute couture, he created a completely separate collection, which already meant to be a milestone in fashion history. 2 years later, Paris was burning. May 68 brought rule-breaking energy to the French society. Yves translated this revolution into an innovation of his design. The business grew fast, and the new shareholders that Pierre found with Catherine Deneuve and the muse and spokeswoman of the label. Meanwhile, the sickly little Fabrice that was being raised by his grandmother Henriette, who was hired as the cleaning lady of Yves' workshop. He used to play in the designer's atelier, and the corridors of the office were his unexpected playground. In 1970, Yves and Pierre moved into a luxury duplex at 55 Rue de Babylone. One of the studios upstairs lived their driver Michael. In fact, he was the lover of Yves and Pierre, and most importantly, Fabrice's father. Michael had split up with Fabrice's mother and used to take his son to the mansion anytime he was not working. At the age of 16, Fabrice came out of boarding school. His mother had died after a long-time illness. He went to work at YSL, following in the footsteps of his father and grandmother. However, the father inexplicably cut ties with him, not even answering his calls anymore. Fabrice believed his father considered him a failure, but it could just be a way to make him avoid experiencing what he had been through. 1984, after juggling odd jobs for 8 years and called to Pierre Bergé, Fabrice was offered the position of factotum at the YSL Prince department. 24-year-old Fabrice was young, naive, and resembled Marlon Brando. His entrance into the company slightly annoyed everyone, including his own father. The couple had already separated in 1976, and Pierre began a new relationship with Madison Cox, a young American garden designer who later became responsible of the famous Margebrel garden in Marrakech. Although he had achieved the glory, Yves was still plunging into the abyss of a deep anguish and of the addiction to drugs, pills, and alcohol. On the other side, Pierre's career was booming. He entered lucrative businesses and was appointed in 1988 the president of Opera Bastille by his friend Mitterrand, whom he supported in the presidential rise. It was at that time that Pierre nominated Fabrice his personal driver for special occasions. He took him under his wing, gave him a lot of money to live on. Being summoned by Pierre meant a price to pay. Although Fabrice was heterosexual, at the end he had sex with Pierre, as happened to his father, affirming later his bisexuality would bring benefits. In reality, Fabrice felt humiliated, especially when he had to participate in Pierre's orgies as a sex toy and submit to his command also in bed with a masochistic role. Pierre had total control over Yves' life. He isolated him and inspected each of his moves to prevent his self-destructive behavior from shaking the empire. The couple came to hate each other, with Yves even trying to assassinate Pierre. Yves started to ask Fabrice to secretly drive him around Paris at night to dine out with friends or go to a sex shop, sometimes ending up carried on Fabrice's back. Pierre went into a rage for these escapes, but he had to accept Yves' will for the company. One morning in 1990, he told Fabrice that Yves wanted to be with him, take it or leave it. Fabrice accepted immediately to break free from Pierre's jaws. Since then, he became Yves' personal assistant, best friend, father, son, and boyfriend. And it was also his impetus to get Yves finally hospitalized. In the summer of 1990, right out from the hospital, Yves asked Fabrice to live together. For the next 2 years and a half, 30-year-old Fabrice and 55-year-old Yves shared every single minute together. Fabrice gave Yves the strength to continue, and Yves provided a crazy and excessive life so difficult for Fabrice to let go. He brought him houses and cars, an antique shop, luxury watches, and invaluable paintings like a Matisse that is still on Fabrice's wall now. They had fun like children at Villa Oasis and Marrakech. Yves drew a lot there, with a Fabrice modeling nude for him. During their relationship, Yves gifted him of more than 300 illustrations, including designs, sketches of Yves' mother, self-portraits, and erotic paintings. Most of them were dedicated to Fabrice below or on a letterhead of a 55 Rue Babylone as an authentication. The idyll ended in 1992. Fabrice couldn't bear Yves' swinging character and left that gilded cage. He settled in the house Yves bought him in the Midi, opened an antique store, and married a woman. With financial difficulties and deep depression, Fabrice sold all of his properties and Yves' gifts, soon got divorced, and even attempted suicide. He only found a lifeline in Lothar Gallinat, an art collector who helped him to rebuild himself. Fabrice gave Lothar most of Yves' sketches to thank him for the unconditional support, only keeping his favorites. Lothar suggested Fabrice to sell the sketches to Pierre for 3 million euros. Pierre was not aware of the existence of the erotic drawings. He was stunned but refused any deal, shut Fabrice's mouth, sending him 20,000 euros, and locked any communication with Lothar about the permission for selling or exhibiting the works. Although they had broken up, Fabrice still felt a sincere affection for Yves. Since 1992, he tried to call and write him many times, but Pierre asked to reject his letters and calls. On June 5, 2008, Fabrice was told by a friend that Yves had passed. He said goodbye to him in the distance. The powerful businessman didn't expect a simple driver would confront him. In 2012, Pierre Berge filed a lawsuit for theft, attempted extortion, and forgery. At the same time, Fabrice listed a group of public figures who would be able to corroborate his story. Unfortunately, most of them were dead, and those alive didn't want to speak up. At the end, Fabrice was discharged of any responsibility since no evidence was found. However, the sketches have remained hidden until 2017 when Pierre died and his husband, Madison Cox, inherited the presidency of the foundation Pierre Berge YSL. One night, Henriette was cleaning the YSL offices. Her grandson, Fabrice, was keeping her company, playing as usual along the corridors. Yves was staying up very late and putting together one of his collections. Little Fabrice ran into his legs by accident. Yves stopped and made the little boy a couple of cute things. That was the first time they met. Yves asked Henriette how old Fabrice was. As soon as he learned that Fabrice had just turned 8, he smiled and said, "Oh, but that's fantastic. He was born the same year that I created my firm. That will bring you luck in life, Fabrice." And that's the whole struggle of the story of Saint Laurent. Thanks for watching the video to the end. See you in the next one.